And here we go. All right, so 5.3 deals with adding, subtracting, and multiplying polynomials. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, and multiplying polynomials. So in case you're wondering, well, Mr. Lowe, what about dividing? Dividing has its own section, which we will do next week. Division has its own section, which we'll do next week. So as far as adding, subtracting, and multiplying goes, if you know how to combine like terms, do distributive property, then 90% of this lesson you've already done. 90% of this lesson you're already done. So you're all good. You need a pencil? All right. So at the top of the page, I've put the steps that you'll need for adding, subtracting, and multiplying. Of course, we'll go through this in more detail in a second. So adding polynomials means you're going to have a parentheses plus another parentheses. Ignore the parentheses, combine like terms, put the answer in standard form. Subtracting polynomials, parentheses minus a parentheses. You'll bring down the first polynomial, distribute the minus sign into the second polynomial, combine like terms, put the answer in standard form. Multiplying is when you have the two parentheses next to each other. Two parentheses next to each other means multiplication. Do distributive property or FOIL. Combine like terms, write the answer in standard form. So, as I mentioned, if you know how to combine like terms, do distributive property, this particular section isn't really all that difficult. So, as you see, there are three examples that are already done for you, one with adding, one with subtracting, and one with multiplying. You can look at those if you so need to, but we're going to go right ahead and jump into the ones that we're going to do together. Examples 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, and 6. As always, if you have questions, please feel free, stop me, ask, get the clarification that you need. The blue papers are the purpose of the blue paper on your desk is once we finish working through some together, you will be given some to try yourself. The ones that you try yourself will be graded. So they will count as a grade. So definitely, if you have questions, please make sure you ask, because the ones that you have to get graded are completely on your own. You can use your notes. You just won't be able to use me. So let's go ahead and get started. So the main problem most people run into with examples 1 and 2 is that they confuse them as multiplication problems. These are not multiplication problems. Why? You have a plus sign in between, and you have a minus sign in between. In order for it to be multiplication, you have to have one parentheses directly next to another. No sign in the middle. So example 1 is an adding problem. So since we're adding, if we look back at our guide, ignore the parentheses. So since it's an addition problem, we can ignore the parentheses. Combine like terms. So if we combine like terms, 2x to the third would go with x to the third. 2x to the third goes with x to the third. So 2 plus 1 gives you what? 3. So 3x to the third. Notice that when you add or subtract, you do not touch the exponents. When you add or subtract, the exponents stay the same. Next part, negative 5x squared. What can I combine with negative 5x squared? 6x squared. Negative 5 plus 6 gives you what? X squared. If you want to put the 1 in front, that's fine, but you don't need to. 3x. Is there anything for the 3x to go with? Just bring it down. And -9 goes with 11. You combine those up, you get what? 2. Check your answer. Make sure you're in standard form. 3, 2, 1, no variable. There's your answer. Problem's over. Bless you. So again, when you adding is simply combining like terms. Any questions? Example 1. Again, if you have a question, please make sure you ask. You will not hurt my feelings by asking a question. All right, example 2. So example 2, subtraction problem. Example 2, we have a subtraction problem. So if we follow our steps, first step, bring down the first polynomial. So whatever is in the first parentheses, simply bring it down. Distribute the minus sign into the second parentheses. So if you distribute, you're going to multiply everything times that negative. So what's a negative times a negative? So that becomes plus 4y squared. What's a negative times a positive? So negative 2y, and then plus 5. Any questions so far? Yes, go ahead. Why did I distribute it over? So distributing it over just makes sure that we don't double count the negative. So if you so you can leave this as a minus, but you better now you have to make sure that you don't double count it. By distributing it, you take care of it and you don't have to worry about it again. Yes, go ahead. So what's a negative times a negative? So there's no number behind that minus sign, right? So what's understood to be there? 1. So what's 1 times 4? 4. Negative times negative is positive. 1 times 4 is 4. A negative times a positive is negative. 1 times 2 is 2. A negative times a negative is positive. 1 times 5 is 5. So that's correct. All right. Oh, go ahead. That's all the time. When you're subtraction, you're taking the second parentheses and multiplying it times -1. So do I have any like terms? So let's put them together then. 3y squared, does it have anything to combine with? Negative 2y squared. So negative 2 plus 4 gives you 2y squared. Say that a little louder for me. Minus 9y, negative 7 minus 2, minus 9y, and then plus 5. Let's see, the exponents are already lined up, so that's done. Notice that I always start with the biggest exponent. Why do you think I would want to start with the biggest exponent? Because it's supposed to be in standard form. If you start with the biggest exponent and work your way down, then your answer is already going to be in standard form. You already took care of it. Again, I want to work smarter, not harder. Any questions, 1 or 2? Yes, go ahead. Because is there anything else that has a y to the third? Then you can't combine it with anything. You just bring it down. If you can't combine it with anything, it just comes down and that's it. Oh, good question. Any other questions, 1 or 2? So, example 3, before we switch over to multiplication. Find the perimeter of the triangle given below. Simplify the result. So, if I want to find the perimeter of something, what do I have to do? Add all the sides. So, there's my 3 sides. So, you have x plus 4 plus 2x squared minus 4x plus 5x to the third minus x plus x squared minus 9. Yes. That's personal preference, so that's on you. If it's easier for you, then that's fine. All right, so let's go ahead and get this simplified. So what's the biggest exponent? So we have 5x to the third. Does it have anything to combine with? Nope. So that comes down. So that's part of the answer. What's the next biggest exponent? 2x squared. Does it have anyone to combine with? So if we combine them, what do we get? 3x squared. All right. So what's the next biggest exponent? So we got 1x minus 4x and negative x. So if we put those together, what do you get? Negative 4x. So 1 minus 4 is negative 3. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. And then you have minus 5. So 4 minus 9, negative 5. So everything is in order. So that's finished. Everything is ordered? Yep, because I can't put any of these together. It's in standard form because you start from the biggest exponent and you work your way down. So other than that, that's it. All right. Questions 1, 2, or 3? We've looked at adding and subtracting. All right. Not hearing any, not seeing any. Let's go ahead and switch to multiplying. Let's see what this All right, so let's switch to multiplying. So remember, multiplying is distributive property. It's FOIL, things of that nature. So there are actually 4 examples that we'll do together for multiplying. So let's kick things off with example 4. So example 4, you got y plus 4 times 3y squared minus 2y minus 10. So distribute means you distribute everything. So if these two are being multiplied together, then first you take the y and multiply it times everything in the second parentheses. Now, when you multiply, this is when the exponents change. This is when your exponents change. Exponents change when you multiply. So you have y times 3y squared. It becomes 3y cubed. Y times negative 2y, negative 2y squared. Y times negative 10, negative 10y. Beautiful. So that's the first distributing. Now you got to distribute the 4. So now the 4 gets distributed. You do the same thing with the 4. So 4 times 3y squared, 12y squared. 4 times negative 2y, negative 8y. And then minus 40. So the 3 parts in red, we distributed the y. The 3 parts in black, we distributed the 4. Any questions before we finish the problem? Yes. That's correct. If you're not taking a variable times a variable, the exponent doesn't need to change. So obviously we can't leave it like this. So now we got to combine like terms. 3y squared, does it have anyone to combine with? Nope. Negative 2y squared, does it have anyone to combine with? So negative 2 plus 12, 10. Negative 10y, does it have anyone to go with? Negative 8. So that's negative 18y. And then minus 40. So it's already in standard form. So there you go. So again, if you know how to distribute, this is pretty simple. Do keep in mind, I'm showing it a little bit slower than how some of you all are going to solve it out. Some of you all probably finished the problem by the time we finished it together. That's fine. Any questions? Example 4. All right, example 5. So example 5, same rules apply. We're still distributing. So what gets distributed first? So t squared comes on over. So t squared times 2t squared gives you what? 2t to the 4th. So if there's no number in front of a variable, it's understood to be 1. So 1 times 2 is 2. T squared times t squared is t to the 4th. Again, the exponents only change when you multiply. Exponents only change when you multiply. You're simply adding them up. T squared times 7 would give you what? 7t squared. So that takes care of the t squared. What else has to get multiplied? Negative 3. Now it's negative 3's turn. All right, what's the other part? Negative 21. Beautiful. So, anything we can put together? So we can put those together, and that would give us what? Just regular t squared, and everything else comes down. Again, it's not required to have t to the 3rd in the problem. So if it's not there, don't freak out about it. If it wasn't there, it wasn't there. Not required to just have a regular t. If it's not there, it's not there. It is what it is. Every problem's different. Any questions on 4 or 5? Yes, go ahead. All right. We'll do 6 and 7, and we'll take a break, and then you'll do the problems yourself. So, example 6. You have 4x minus 1 raised to the third power. So, I'm going to show you the wrong way to do this problem. So, here's the wrong way to do this problem. 4x minus 1 to the third. So, I'm going to take 4x and raise it to the third power, and 1 and raise it to the third power. So that's going to give me 64 x to the third minus 1, and that's my answer. That's 100% wrong. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. This is the wrong way to do it. So don't do it the wrong way because, oh, I'm in a rush and I just got to put something down so I can try to get something. If that's a 5-point problem, yeah, you'll get the sympathy point. You'll get the sympathy 1 point, and you're going to lose 4 points for not doing it correctly. So now let's do it the right way. If something is raised to the third power, how many times are you multiplying it? 3. So you need to write it 3 times. So write the problem 3 times first. And then we solve it out. So my advice, it is always easier to work with things 2 at a time. So we're going to do the first 2. So leave this one alone for a second. So we're going to take the first 2 and multiply it out. 4x times 4x gives you what? 16x squared. 4x times negative 1, negative 4x. And then negative 1 times 4x is negative 4x. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Can I combine any of this? So negative 4 and negative 4. 16x squared minus 8x plus 1. Any questions so far? Again, it may seem like I'm going slow, but I'm also making sure that I don't miss anything, that I don't rush it, and that I do it correctly. Now that you've multiplied the first 2, now you can take this and multiply it times the last one. Now take this and multiply it times the last one. So start with 16x squared. So 16x squared times 4x gives you what? 64 x cubed. 64x cubed. And then negative 16 times negative 1 gives you what? Negative 16x squared. Now go to 8x. Negative 8x times 4x. Negative 32x squared. And then negative 8 times negative 1. Plus 8x. Now multiply times 1. 1 times 4x, 4x, and 1 times negative 1, negative 1. Again, I have the luxury of using colors, so if you have highlighters or have colored pencils, use them. So Now all that's left to do is combine like terms. So 64x to the third, can it go with anyone? Nope. Negative 16x squared, can it go with anyone? The person sitting right next to it. So negative 48x squared. 8 and 4 can go together. And minus 1 just has to come over. There you go. Problem's over. Yeah, not a hard problem. You just got to put in a little work. So, just to recap, if you have a parentheses raised to the third power, you have to write it 3 times. You have to write it out 3 times. Take the first 2, multiply it out, and then take your answer and multiply it times the third one. And not hard, just a little bit of work. Any questions? Example 6 before we do 7. Get you a couple minutes break. Then you'll work on the half sheet. Get everything on the full page. All right. So let's do number 7 and we'll get to a break. Write the figure's volume as a polynomial in standard form. So here we have a rectangular prism. We have a box. The volume is length times width times height. Volume is length times width times height. So here's your length, here's your width, here's your height. So again, let me show you the wrong way that this is done. This is how most people get it wrong. Oh, x times x times x is x to the third. 5 times 3 times 1 is 15. There's my volume. That's 100% wrong. That's the wrong way to do it. The right way to do it is to set the problem up. So example 7 is no different than the one we just finished solving. It's just putting in the work to do it. So let's go ahead and do that. So start with the first 2. X times x, x squared. X times 3, 3x. 5 times x, 5x, plus 15. 3x and 5x is 8x. We ready to roll. So now we take our answer and multiply times x plus 1. Give myself a little bit more room here. So x squared times x is what? X to the third. X squared times 1. X squared. So 8x times x. 8x squared. 8x times 1. 8x. 15 times x. 15x. 15 times 1. 15. So notice if you do it that way, your like terms are sitting next to each other. Yeah, go ahead. This x squared, taking x squared and multiplying it times 1. So if you set it up right, the like terms are already next to each other. So x to the third plus 9x squared plus 23x plus 15. There's your volume. Yeah, go ahead. Yep, you all yep, you can go to the bathroom and we will put ourselves on break until 9:30.